Good morning, guys. My name is Brandy Skelton, and I am from Busy Bee Commercial Kitchen in Springboro. And so it's good to see you guys. I got to meet most of you a month or so ago, I think. So what we'll be doing today is a sun-dried tomato and spinach quinoa salad. And I consider it a salad more than a bowl because it's served cold. And so this is what I consider, a lot of people consider a healthier dish. It's vegetarian. It has a good amount of protein. It has a good amount of nutrients from different vegetables and fresh foods. And it's all whole foods. And I think that's one of the things that people kind of struggle to get into their diets. And sometimes those are the things that are also a little intimidating. So for you guys to learn it today and then turn around and teach it to others, it's going to help make healthy eating more accessible for people. And that's always been kind of my goal, is to help make something that's intimidating for a lot of people a lot easier and more attainable. So what we'll do, so the main components of the dish are the quinoa, and then the things that go into it for flavor. We have fresh spinach, fresh parsley, sun-dried tomatoes, and almonds. And then some of the complementary things that make up the dressing and a little bit of the extra for texture. We have lemon zest and lemon juice. We will make a red wine vinaigrette. We have fresh garlic and Dijon mustard, red wine vinegar, salt and pepper, the usual stuff. So a lot of what I like about this recipe is nothing in here is scary. A lot of it is things that people will already have, and it's just a matter of adding in the fresh ingredients. And so the first thing, when I like to cook, I like to do things, and I will either start with my prep because I love to chop, or in this case, we'll do the quinoa because when we have everything else ready, we like the quinoa to be ready. So quinoa is a grain. It is a great substitute for a lot of other starches, whether that's rice or pasta or something, because it has more protein, it has more fiber, it has more nutrients in it. So it's something that a lot of people can eat and get a little bit more out of than the foods they normally do. And cooking quinoa is a lot like cooking rice, and so it's typically about a 1-to-2 ratio as far as the quinoa to water. Similar to rice, it's best, you can get away without doing it, but it's best to rinse it first, just to get, and you'll see that after I rinse it, like the water that's left is a little bit filmy, and so you'll see that's helpful to get that out. It just helps with the texture and the flavor later on. And so I have a cup of quinoa, and I'm going to put it in a fine mesh sieve, and then we're going to pour some water over it and kind of shake it around. So I do a little and kind of shake it. You'll lose a couple of them, but it's okay. Depending, sometimes you may see like a little bit of a foaminess to the water that comes out, kind of like when you're draining beans. And so you just want to, that will help the flavor and the texture later. All right, so hang on to that. And then from there, another thing, again, some of these are steps that can be skipped, but as far as the best in flavor and texture, if you've got the time, you may as well do it. And a lot of times when I'm teaching people and talking about food prep, that's one of the things that I'll stress is, there's always a good, better, and best. You can have, do it decent. If you have more time, spend a little extra time on the fresh ingredients. And if you don't, then, sometimes you can cut corners. It's just a matter of learning where you can and where you can't. So then from there, we want to let that, we're going to do a little bit of olive oil. This is something that the girls at Living Dayton like to call measuring with your heart when I don't have exact amounts. So I just do a little bit of olive oil to coat the bottom, and then I put this in and we'll let it warm up, and we'll toast it a little bit before we add our water. Again, it helps the texture. Let's see. Okay, so may I give that to you? And then to show you guys real quick, this is, if you can see, I'll try to do it without spilling, but this is what the water looks like, so that's why you do want to rinse it off, ideally. Thank you so much. Here we go. All right, so then we're going to watch this, and we'll let it kind of come to temperature and start to toast, and then while that's happening, we can do our prep. And so I love fresh produce. in all of my food. Everything I eat, I try to have either a serving of fruit or a serving of vegetables, if not possible, both. And I think having fresh produce is such key to making healthy food taste good for people. We often will, I say we start to eat with our sense of smell. Anytime you walk in someplace and somebody says, oh wow, it really smells good in here, that just begins the beginning of whether someone thinks something is gonna be delicious or not. So as that toasts just a little bit, and you'll be able to smell that start to become fragrant while it's doing that. And so then in the meantime, the first thing I'll do is lemons. And lemon zest is, I just think, one of the, any kind of citrus zest is kind of a secret tool. It's kind of a secret ingredient for me. I think that, actually I'm supposed to be doing this over here. The freshness just comes through. You can immediately smell it. And it adds a lot, especially in something like this where it's gonna sit and kind of marinate with the quinoa and the vegetables and everything. It's gonna come together. And so zesting, you don't wanna go very deep at all. You just wanna get the very top. You don't wanna get down to the pith because that can taste bitter. And so you just run it across the top to get some of the stuff out of the way, just to get the very top. So I typically will just go ahead and zest the whole lemon, and for the size of what we did for this recipe, that will be appropriate as well. First, we will stir. All right. So then once that has started to toast a little bit, then we will do 2 cups of water, and we're gonna let that boil. You can cover it. I believe my recipe says to cover, but I'm kind of a control freak and I like to watch what's going on. So I typically don't. Okay. All right, so we'll finish this guy. I like to zest lemons over a paper towel or something because it helps keep it all in one place. I don't have to pick up my whole cutting board and try to get it in there. I don't have to worry about losing a bunch when I'm trying to move it to the salad. And so this has just become a habit of mine to zest it over something flexible that I can then kind of pour into something. All right, so once I've gone over the whole thing, and this is what I like about it because then I can take this whole thing, then you can easily measure what you have and just kind of move it out of the way for when you're ready. And then juicing the lemon. I have plenty of lemon juice. I have a gallon of lemon juice that I use. But anytime I need fresh lemon zest for anything, then I'll go ahead and always juice the lemons and use the fresh juice. I like to, it's kind of like when you guys do eggs, how you crack your eggs over a bowl so that you don't get anything in, you don't get shells and what have you in your food. I do the same thing with my lemons. I do them separately so that if any seeds pop out, and I will invariably splash myself in the face. So if I do that, you can just pretend it didn't happen. And so you go ahead and juice your lemons. That's a big half. There. Okay. Okay. All right, so there's our first part. We're watching our quinoa. And what you'll be watching for is the quinoa has 2 parts to it. It has the, I don't know, maybe it's called the pearl, the ball of it, and then it has the germ. And as it you'll know it's done when that little bit of the germ starts to separate, and you can see these little curlicues in there. And so you'll know, one, it absorbs all the water, and two, you'll be able to see these little white curlicues as they start to separate, and then you'll know that you've got your right texture. So then while that continues to cook, then we can do the rest of our prep. And that's going to be garlic and parsley and green onion. And so, you know, garlic comes in heads like this. I went ahead and peeled this one so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing, but you just take your fingers and peel away some of the garlic peel, as much as you need, and then just pop the cloves out. And so then they still have a paper on them. And so from there, I smash it with my knife a little bit, being careful to keep the knife away from me, being careful to keep my hands on this end of the knife. And then that, I find, makes it a lot easier to just peel off the paper. But it usually keeps it relatively together. It doesn't completely just obliterate and smash it, which makes it easier to chop. I'm a self-taught cook, and so you guys will get a more formal, more specific education on things. So I may use words like chop for everything, whether I'm dicing, mincing, what have you. And so as we're here, if you have, when you guys have questions, you can let me know, because I do tend to use words interchangeably just because I'm not professionally trained. All right, so then when we mince garlic, I cut thin lines almost to the end, but not, so it holds together, and then come back across the other direction. And we'll go ahead and do this guy, although he started to fall apart. Sure, we got a stray lemon seed. All right. And then especially because we're going to use this raw in the dressing, you want to make sure you mince it up really finely so it's not overpowering. Somebody, if they get a big chunk of garlic in their dressing, they're not going to like it. I think garlic is one of those things that some people think they don't like, but it's just because they've had it it's just overpowering, too big of a piece or in the wrong way. All right, so we've got these guys minced up small. And over here. Good, doing good over here. And this is starting to absorb the water. If you have your heat too high, it can absorb the liquid too quickly but not be completely cooked all the way through. And if that happens, it's not the end of the world. You can just add a little bit more water to it. So that's usually how I handle that. Green onions, I like to cut the ends off, one, because the ends are usually a little bit dry where it's already been cut. And then I hold them together and just chop them thinly, moving your hand down. You can also, especially for when you're teaching the staff, you can cut your fresh herbs with scissors. A lot of people may feel more comfortable with that than getting out. I know one thing that when I get out big knives, people get nervous. And so if it's something that they're not super comfortable with, fresh herbs, you can easily just slice or cut with scissors. So we've got this guy ready. And then our fresh parsley, which has been rinsed and dried. And then again, I'm not super fancy about this. I cut the ends off. I will use those later, but when I'm in the middle of a recipe, I tend to just cut the tops off where I don't have any. Like, I'm okay with little stems, but any of the great big stems I feel like can be distracting. But I leave stems and leaves. Parsley's underrated. It gives a lot of freshness. And it does give flavor. It's funny, everybody thinks it's just well, when I worked in restaurants, I always worked in the front of the house, and I always just thought parsley was a garnish until I started actually cooking. But I love it. And again, it's one of those things that once you start chopping, people can smell it, and it just smells so fresh and clean. Okay. All right. See how we're doing? We're absorbing. All right, we're getting there. A little bit of water left, and the little curly guys are not quite separating, but they will soon. And let's see. So I think the only other thing that we have left as far as getting our prep ready is in this recipe, for the majority of the olive oil, I like to use the oil that's in the sun-dried tomatoes. It gives so much flavor. And so that is, so I will typically, I pour some of the oil out and then measure from there. I do this a lot. Anything that comes in a liquid of its own, I've learned not to just rinse it or drain it and throw it away. I make a dill pickle chicken salad, and when I use the dill pickles, I do the same thing. I pour the dill pickle juice into a bowl or into a measuring cup so that if I need just a little more flavor, I have it. Okay, all right, we're starting to be able to see some of these germs separate a little bit. I don't think you'll be able to see it even on the, but we'll show you in a bit. And you'll be able to see it when you're making it yourself for sure. All right. So I don't burn that while I'm talking. I'm going to go ahead and turn it down and let it finish up. All right, so we've got this guy. All right. All right, from there, let's see. So we are done with these guys if you want. All right, and then, let's see. I will still this guy real quick. For our salad dressing, we'll do, because this is just about done. For the salad dressing, it is... What did I do with my 1 cupper? Here it is. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. It's about, we'll do, since this is serving multiple people, I'm going to do about a 1/2 cup. Usually a lot of salad dressings, a lot of times your oil and your vinegar or whatever your acid is, they're going to be similar in measurement. This one has a little more oil. When I first started making salad dressings, they always tasted oily, and so I had to learn kind of how to make that adjustment and how to add. I don't think I was always hesitant to add enough salt, and I was kind of scared, I guess, of the vinegar because I thought it would overpower, but it takes the right ratio. Honey or maple syrup are my go-to for just a little bit of a balancing, a little bit of sweetening with the acid. And so I start with a tablespoon of honey, and then you can always add in a little bit more to taste if you need. And then Dijon mustard gives it a little bit of a kick and is also an emulsifier that helps it stick together. However, I will say that vinaigrettes are going to separate naturally. That's just the nature of them. The oil and the vinegar are not going to stay together. And so you'll always, this is one of a single serving of this dressing that I made for our customers, and you'll see the oil's on top and everything else is settled to the bottom. But if you shake it, it'll all come back together, and the mustard is what helps it to do that. And then also, when it's in the fridge, if it's cold, it's definitely going to separate. And that's one thing that's a question I've had to answer a lot, is they're like, is this dressing okay? Is this all right? And it is. It's just, when you buy store-bought, they have a lot of extra things in them that keep them all together. But when you make things from scratch, they tend to go back to their natural to their natural state. So from here, and I kind of got a little bit of my herbs in them, but we'll put our garlic in here. And salt and pepper. And you whisk it. And when you go, because it will separate when you go to whisk it, you'll want to whisk it again. Or when you go to serve it, you'll want to whisk it again. So we do that. What do I see in here? This is something I do at home, but not in my kitchen. Okay, definitely needs more. So you'll know when you taste it. It tastes olive oily. Do this, and a little more honey. Now that I'm not measuring, I can just do this. Whisk it. I think once people learn to make a vinaigrette, they can do this all the time, because I feel like the oils and the vinegars are things that people have in their pantry and don't use very often. So when you give them an excuse to use stuff that they already have, it's perfect. So, all right, so we'll go with this. Let's see. Yeah, now I'm starting to see those little guys. All right, from there, now's the easy part. You just throw, everything goes in a bowl and it gets mixed up. One thing that is up to your discretion is if you add your salad dressing now. I don't know if you've had leftover pasta and it just doesn't taste, like it feels like the sauce just kind of disappears on you. There's not as much flavor, there's not as much liquid, it's not as creamy. So when I'm making this ahead, and this is something that I encourage people when they are having it, is I will tend to hold my dressing on the side and put the dressing on when it's time to serve. You certainly don't have to do it that way, but I feel like you get a lot more bang for your buck when it comes to flavor if you do it that way. So we've got our quinoa, and we're going to do our fresh herbs. Let's see. We're going to do our lemon juice. I believe this recipe is about 2 tablespoons, but my bowl's on top of my recipe now. Do a little extra. And our lemon zest. As well as, it's about a 1/4 cup of almonds. And our sun-dried tomatoes. That's about a 1/2 cup. That's what the recipe calls for. You can do as much as you like. I love sun-dried tomatoes, and I put a lot in my recipe. I know I learned a lot of my cooking from my stepdad, and he thinks that sun-dried tomatoes are just to flavor things. So he likes to have them in there, but not a ton. But I love them. I will just eat them. So this is what your salad will look like. Lots of green. I always consider if it's got a lot of color, healthy food, they always say eat the rainbow. So if it's got a lot of color, it's probably healthy. And in my opinion, it's probably pretty delicious too. Since we'll be tasting this, and we're gonna go ahead and I'm going to pour some of the dressing over it and toss it. And then, of course, the last thing you want to do is taste it and see if it needs salt and pepper. It probably does, because I go light on salt. I always do, I meal prep for people for years, and so I always go light on things, whether it's spice or salt or anything. I always try not to do anything overly sweet. My opinion is you can always add it, but you just cannot take it out once it's in there. And so I always start light and add. Even on any recipe I read, I usually have the salt to start, just because I just don't want to ruin something, and I'd rather keep adding it and tasting it than have to worry about masking it later. And so this is our salad. It's excellent for meal prep because it holds up really. Oh, no, it's not. We didn't put our spinach in. I lied. I'm sorry. I was like, it seems small. So spinach, I believe that in my recipe I specified to chop the spinach. That again is a step that's up to someone's discretion, depending on how much time they have and how much they prefer that. I think spinach does a great job with everything in here of wilting and kind of shrinking in on its own. It's not always necessary to chop it. And so I like to throw it in, and it feels more like a salad to me. And then it helps you give a ratio of vegetables to grains. And so, so again, like this spinach now will be very fresh, and it will wilt a little bit as it sits with this. But I don't think, it doesn't get like mushy or soggy or anything like that. It's just kind of, it does its own thing, and it ends up still a really nice texture. And that's another reason why I like a lot of the sturdier greens, because they will do that for busy people like the ones you guys will be working with. Anything they can make ahead that's still gonna feel fresh when they eat it is a big plus, I think. That's really the thing when it comes to healthy eating. And so quickly we'll talk about why this is a healthy recipe. And number one is everything in here is a whole food. It is full of vegetables and fresh herbs. Every ingredient has a reason for being there. The quinoa is high in fiber, it's high in protein. It's not just a starch that's gonna break down quickly in people's body, so it will help keep them full longer. It's great for digestion with the fiber. The protein is something that everyone needs in their diet, whatever stage of life they're in, just a matter of where you're getting that from. Spinach is also an excellent source as far as vegetables go of protein. And then the fresh herbs, tomatoes, obviously, lots of them are good for your vegetables and greens are great for heart health, for bone health, for brain health, for moving blood around the body, oxidizing, all of that kind of thing. And so it's got the almonds, which is an olive oil, which is a healthy fat, which fats also help to slow down the absorption of nutrients in the body, which help people feel full longer and get more nutrients from them. And so we've got a lot more information on that, but this is the recipe. This is what we'll do, and this is what you guys will be working on, and you'll teach to others.